You ready?
Yeah, man, I'm good.
I won't screw this one up. Hello, Tile friends, and welcome back to another episode of the TileMoney podcast. My name is Luke Jackson Miller, your host, and today I've got Grant in the studio with me. Grant is the co-host. How are you doing, Grant?
Doing awesome, Luke. How are you doing today?
Doing really good, man. Doing really good. I'm excited to talk to Mark. Mark is a new podcaster in the tiling world. He has a podcast called Tiling Connect. I'm going to put a link in the show notes and for everybody to find this new podcast. It's a slightly different take on it. He is in the industry, but he's not. Doesn't come from an installation background like I do. So he has a slightly different style of conversations. He does interview tilers as well as other industry professionals. Fantastic podcast. It's 10, 12 episodes into it. Mark's on fire. I mean, he's really enthused about continuing the professional conversation and encouraging new people to come into the trade, and then kind of connecting people to the right authorities and the right kind of standards in Australia, where he's from, as well as, communicating worldwide. We had a great conversation with him, and Mark's really excited about some of the newer developments in Australia for tiling and what that means over there. And I think there's some translation, and we had a really good back and forth. I know you're going to enjoy this interview, Tile friends, and get some value out of it. TileMoney podcast is sponsored by HappyTileGuy.com. Grant is my partner over at HappyTileGuy.com. One of the things we're doing is, the main thing we're doing is providing tile contractors with beautiful search engine optimized websites. Grant, can you expand on this?
Yeah, absolutely, Luke. Thank you so much. Happy to expand on that. What Luke said. I mean, we're here for you guys. We're specifically aimed for tile contractors. Obviously, there's some overlap. Some guys do some other things, bathroom and kitchen remodels, those kind of things. But essentially, what we've done is we've done our best to take everything we could off your plate. So when Luke and I set out to do this, I think it's been over 3 years now. We got the initial 20 some odd people to come on board. We really saw where the pain points and the issues were. We've kind of, evolved from there. We've got a lot of pre-written content. Everything's done for you. Basically, we just need a little bit of information for anybody that wants to sign up. We need a little bit of information about the business, your branding and stuff like that. We get some project photos, and then our team goes to work and does the rest for you. We've done the initial research for SEO purposes. We've got the content pre-written by a professional copywriter that was, written by Luke and then optimized for SEO and proofread and everything. So we do our best to take everything off your plate. Like I always tell people, is like, I don't go try to tile my own bathroom. There's no reason for you to try to make your own website. You're going to spend 20, 30, 40 plus hours trying to do it. And at the end of the day, it's not going to be as good as a professional website. So we're able to offer that to you. Professional website, SEO optimized, gives you all the credibility that you need for a great, at a great price point. And that's our goal. We want to reach and help as many people as we can, these independent, smaller run operations in the tile business, and help them grow and grow along with them. So, it's a white glove service. We do everything for you. We take it all off your plate, and we set you up with a website and set you up for success. Ultimately, that's our goal here.
Absolutely. And I want to thank you, Grant, for being my partner for 3 years or however long, because honestly, it's been a few years, plus or minus. Yeah. But one of the things I noticed as a tile contractor was the lack of peers having websites, the lack of competitors' websites. And it's like an easy layup, because it right away distinguishes you from the competition. And it shows you're a little more invested, in my opinion.
It does.
It just shows it's an asset. It's a digital asset that you own and that you continue to invest in and improve and show your personality a little bit, your About Me page, your history, your licenses, how to work with you. And it definitely helps the higher end clientele to choose a contractor. And I've been very happy to have nothing but, have really heard nothing but good from our clients. Many of them are really crediting HappyTileGuy.com, their website, to them being able to level up their business. So thank you for what you're doing for my friends in the industry. Sincerely, man.
Absolutely.
And, anybody that wants to learn more, go to HappyTileGuy.com. The link is in the description here, the show notes. So if you're listening or watching this, check it out. All right. Well, enjoy this interview, tile friends, and we'll talk to you afterwards. All right, Mark, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Really appreciate you. I've been listening to your new podcast. For my audience who maybe hasn't heard your new podcast or doesn't follow you on Facebook, Instagram, who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, thanks, Luke, and thanks for having me today. My name is Mark. I'm from Australia, here in sunny Brisbane, and I've got a podcast. Excuse me. I have a podcast out there called TileMoney, which is really about it's like it's a hub, right? It's a hub to bring all of the best industry information together and share that amongst the audience, so that people can get connected with the best information to achieve, really quality tile projects and outcomes on jobs.
Nice. I like that. Yeah, I like that a lot. How many episodes are you into now?
We're 10 deep.
10 deep,
so
man.
yeah, the 10th was launched last week.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Right on. Well, we've got 3 podcasters here. So Grant, my co-host, has a podcast in another industry, for his for the tanning industry, actually, right, Grant?
Yeah, that's right. Beauty industry. Yep.
Yeah. So we should
awesome.
after we record the tile one, we'll record just a podcast podcast about podcasting.
That's funny.
Sounds fantastic.
Yeah, awesome.
So what does your tile business look like, Mark?
The Tile and Connect business.
You're in the installation business as well, right? Or wrong?
No. Look, my pedigree spans back around about 20 years. So I've been involved in the tiling industry since the early 2000s, and cut my teeth in the retail sector. So working in tile retail outlets, in management and leadership and that sort of thing. So I sort of grew up with tiling earlier on, and it sort of stuck with me forever, and I haven't been able to shake it. I think when you start working in the building industry, that you develop a bit of a love and passion for the people and the product, and that sort of expanded over many years. And I'm still here today and still loving it. It's a great industry, and to actually be involved in something that's built is pretty incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. It's contagious for sure.
Yeah.
It's hard to get out of once you're into it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Definitely. So you get to see all sides of the business then, I'm assuming?
Yeah, absolutely. So over the many years that I've been involved, I was in the business of selling tiles, and then I sort of migrated into that adhesive waterproofing landscape for many years. So I worked for a couple of major adhesive companies here in Australia, similar to the Laticretes of the world, and I spent a long time in some senior leadership roles with a major tile retailer here in that tool space as well. So I was very heavily involved in product development, importing products from overseas. We're bringing, tile cutters in from Italy, electric tile machines in from Spain, and selling it into the market here. So, I've had a lot of different touch points, and it's been very cool.
Nice.
Awesome.
Right on. So how strong is the industry in Australia? I mean, I know it seems pretty strong from what I see, but maybe you can give, myself and my listeners an education of the Australian tile industry at large.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an incredibly strong industry. I think the statistics that we have that come out in a magazine are still showing that we're importing about 36 million square meters a year. So it's a large number, and it's been pretty consistent all the way through COVID as well. There doesn't seem to be too much of a drop in terms of the amount of square meters. So we have a particularly strong industry. 26 million people, I think, in Australia. Mm-hmm. So the industry is pretty buoyant. We have a couple of major retailers here, and then we have the major hardware chains that are pretty heavily involved. So there's a lot of building going on. There's a lot of delays at the moment with the building industry due to COVID, with getting materials and supplies on the ground. So it's still it's pretty busy.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to hear. It's really good to hear. How often or what capacity are you working with the tile installer over there?
Look, my job at the moment is pretty heavily involved with the tile installer. So one of the brands, or a few of the brands that we bring in from overseas, are electric machines and tile cutters and that sort of thing. So I'm the guy that is there when they need a bit of technical support or technical help. So there's a lot of going to site. And spending some time with the guys or girls. We've got a massive emergence of female contractors, which is incredible.
Yeah.
And just helping them on site with any sort of technical support they need in terms of performance of the machines and how it's cutting, blade development and things like that, so that they're getting the best performance out of the machines that they've purchased. So, yeah, pretty heavily involvement. It definitely on a weekly basis. I'm out there spending some time with different contractors and helping them out.
That's what I figured. Nice.
Yeah.
So what are the challenges that you're seeing these guys? I mean, beyond the challenges of the tool or, the technical aspects that you're helping them, walk through, what other, business challenges are common over there?
I think the big one is, and it goes back to the inspiration around creating the podcast, was getting the best information to the right people.
Mm-hmm.
We have a very different tiling industry over here in Australia compared to, I imagine, to compared to what's in the States.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, population's very, very different, and we have a set of standards in Australia here that have been around for a long time, and only up until recently there hasn't been a lot of updates to our standards and the guide around installing ceramic and porcelain tiles. Mm-hmm. And I'm hearing some good news that next year there's a new update to this standard occurring, which is incredible. And I think that one of the biggest challenges that we have is getting that information in the hands of the contractors so that they can make informed decisions. That's huge, right? Time is money. Everyone's on the job site. Everyone's, mix and glue, installing tile, and trying to make a living. And when it's really difficult to find the information, it makes it hard for that to transfer into the trade and skill. So that, by far, for me, would be the biggest challenge that we have. And then the other thing would be regulating our trade more. So I know that here in Australia, when we have other trades such as electricians or plumbers, potentially even carpentry, they have to go through regular courses and training to upskill and maintain their knowledge. We don't seem to have that in the finishing trades as much. So I think that having, a sort of a recognised training course here locally in Australia that, is overseen by a large body would be pretty cool. That
would be cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one thing we have going for us over here, I think. And even in Canada, they're getting started with the more training, more emphasis on the training and the testing and the regulating. It's in the United States. It's some states are the Wild West, and a few states have licensing. But that's so interesting. Why I mean, it's such a good question. Like, why our trade got looked over for, I guess, stipulations and regulations. And I guess maybe because it's a finished trade and people assume what you get is what you see is what you get. I don't know.
Yeah, look, it's strange, right? Like I think finishing trades are they're the last trade to be in a residential dwelling, whether it be a house or a commercial operation or a high-rise building, and they really it's what makes the look of the entire building. So I don't get it. It's strange. Yeah, it's really strange.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if some of that has to deal with the number of people and the amount of money that some governing body can receive from said trade.
Yeah. Yeah, there could be some red tape there.
Yeah.
Sure.
Not to raise the flag, but
no. Let's not go down that rabbit hole.
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, for a long time, maybe we didn't really tile showers so much, so there wasn't any like real danger. But I think since, I don't know, 70s, 80s, we've been tiling a lot of showers, and there is a real danger, and now that we're past the point of failures and moldy showers and stuff, like that's a real health danger that I think being brought to the authorities that are, basically there to protect the end user, the home buyer, the purchaser. So some people making some headway though, and I'm glad to see things changing. Like you said, things are always changing. You mentioned earlier more females getting into the trades in general. It's a great sight to see. I think the over here, just around the world, I guess it seems like the people attracted to the blue collar trades maybe going through a slight shift right now, and I'm not so certain that's a bad thing. I think that's a good thing, as far as the personalities and more females and different types of people being holding the trades more valuable. I think people are starting to experience the pains of maybe a expensive education that didn't amount too much as far as a career, and they're having a second look at the trades, which I think is really good. And I think we as an industry, as blue collar people, specifically tile, should use that to our advantage and to attract more people to the trade and to maybe shed some of the bad habits and stuff that maybe we developed in the trade, and almost look at it like some new life is being, injected, into our industry, which is a good thing.
I like that, Luke. You very poetically said that. It is it's very true. I mean, between social media, actually, social media is probably one of the bigger drivers of encouraging people to get into the trade.
Right.
And you just need to look at Instagram. When you have a look at tiling contractors and how proud they are of the work that they're posting, I mean, you didn't see that 10 years ago. You'd have to, maybe flick through some images on a phone or held somewhere on someone's device, but you didn't actually, you weren't able to, you were limited in how you could see it. I mean, websites are around, sure, but again, time is money, and a lot of contractors were out there on the tools and didn't really have an opportunity to spend all that time, building websites and that sort of thing. So, and now today, it's just so much easier to, throw a post up in seconds, and just some of the work is incredible. And I've seen some. I think it's encouraging a lot of different gender, the different genders and a lot of different people from all walks of life and backgrounds to get into, to tiling and other trades as well.
Yeah. It's kind of like a perfect storm of the social media, the rise in cost of education, at least in the States. I don't know about Australia. It's astronomical. And then people looking at, I can go to school for less time, make more money, a solid career path, and as a consumer, somebody that just views it, like Mark was saying, it's like to be able to see all their work visible, like, oh, this is great. This is the person. I can visualize my bathroom looking that way, my shower, etc. It just kind of opens it up, whether it's Instagram, website, Facebook, et cetera, or all three. It's a great opportunity for the consumer to be able to kind of gauge that and pick by themselves without having to guess if that person's going to be good based on references or whatever else.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, completely agree.
And personalities are shining through. I mean, I think you're absolutely right. The social media has really elevated everybody, even amongst installers. I know when I started scrolling and looking at people doing certain things, it elevated my desire, even just my desire to do better work. Mm-hmm. And then that followed through with actually my work. And then, like I'm wearing HUD's tiling hat right now. When I interviewed him, I said, what is your intention with your brand, with HUD's? Why are you, growing your Instagram so ferociously? I mean, every day he's on there, and he's such a great personality for our industry and for humans in general, right? I mean, the guy smiles and laughs and jokes all day long and just has a blast, just loves what he does. I mean, what more joy could you have than just loving what you do every single day? And he said, I want to, I'm a brand. HUD's Tiling is a brand because I want to attract people to this trade. And it's as simple as that. He's not really asking for anything. I mean, he sells merchandise and he gives his knowledge away for free. And, it's just attractive, people from all over, so I speak to people who listen to this podcast that aren't in the industry. And so you never know. You put yourself out there, you put your personality out there, and you attract others to the industry. and people start thinking, well, maybe tile is a good choice for me, you know. And I think that's really really important, you know, that we keep going that direction. You know, how can we as leaders, Mark, you know, I assume I consider you a leader, you know, in the industry, somebody who's willing to, you know, put your voice out there and have these conversations. You know, what can we do to kind of ensure that the future of the industry is positive and goes in the right direction, maybe from some of the lessons we've learned over the years?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it starts with, you know, having the conversations around the industry. And Luke, I think you started back in 2018, if I'm correct.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously you're certainly an inspiration to me wanting to get involved at a local level here. And I know a lot of people have given me the feedback around how great it is to have a representative, as they call it, from down under. And we're only sort of just starting, right? So
Sure.
I think as leaders, you know, this whole sharing information and putting good content out there, and you know, listening to, you know, what the trades need is by far some of the biggest things that we can do. And then be that source of, you know, grabbing that you know, those questions and finding the right information and sharing it with the wider audience, because one person will ask a question. However, we all know that there's probably another 100 out there that want the same answer to that one question. And I think giving back to the industry that's given me so much is something that, you know, if we can, you know, do a podcast or be involved in any way, shape, or form, this is the perfect platform just to give back and say, hey, thanks for letting me be a part of the industry. And I think that's the best place to start, you know, and being a leader and being seen as a leader, and making sure that you're connecting all the right people. We here in Australia, we have, and I've said it a few times on my podcast episodes, we've had some incredible people come through in the 70s and 80s and build an amazing tile industry in Australia. And then now we're sort of having a lot of these people retire. And there's this big void starting to creep into the industry, where there's not a lot of people at my level in terms of age and development getting involved in the industry. Everyone's sort of sitting back, and that's cool. People have got things to do. I get it. You know, not everyone wants to, you know, get their hands dirty every day, but we need to keep, you know, we need to be the glue to keep bringing, you know, the right information together for the industry and moving forward.
Yeah, I like that. Well said.
Yeah, absolutely. Mark, I'm curious, outside of the, I guess, education regulation piece, what are the other struggles that you hear being, you know, working with the individual contractors? Anything else that stands out to you from, I mean, Luke and I hear some from the people that we work with, part of Luke's mastermind and stuff. So I'm curious I'm sure there's some overlap, but I'm curious what else you're hearing.
Yeah, look, training in the industry is a big one. You know, getting your hands on the right training from different organizations. We have, you know, certificate 3 and 4 in wall and floor tiling, which is sort of conducted through a lot of the TAFEs here in Australia. Training's, you know, definitely one that we need more of in a wider format. The way our country works, it's very I wouldn't say fragmented, but very segmented in terms of its states. So from one state to another, you may need to have a license for waterproofing. In another state, you may not need a license for waterproofing. In some states, you need a license for tiling. In other states, you don't need a license for tiling. So we've got all the states sort of running off with their own sets of rules, and we don't really have an umbrella approach from a country perspective going, hey, here's a set of rules. Please make sure you follow these, because they're going to give you the best outcomes that you wish to achieve. That, and then, you know, there's a lot of talk at the moment, probably not as directly related to the tiling industry, but definitely in that tiling and stone space, which I'm involved in as well. Is there's a lot more talk now about the dangers of silica dust and silicosis. We've had a lot of health challenges here with a lot of stone masonry people, and it's starting to the awareness campaigns are starting to be promoted again amongst the industry.
Oh wow,
that's good.
Yeah.
How is the health of the average installation business over there? Would you say the installer business owner is pretty healthy? Do they have a lot of employees over there, or is it kind of like the majority of installers over here run pretty small, pretty lean operations, I would say?
Yeah, look, last check, I think, and this is going back a few years, the numbers were telling me that we had around about 4,500 tile contractor businesses across Australia. Now, that number may have changed, whether it's higher or lower, I'm not sure. And there's a lot of independent tiling contractors. So, maybe a one or two person show. And then you'll have the crews that are involved in doing the high-rise commercial jobs in, the CBDs across the sort of eastern seaboard, and then over in Perth and Adelaide. So, there's quite a few around, and we're finding. I mean, at the moment, you may be getting the same there as well. There's a massive skills shortage to get a lot of the work done. And obviously, prices are going up. Which is probably a good thing for our industry, right? But it took for a pandemic for it to occur. So I don't know if that's an excellent place for it to come from, because that can cause some issues, at the other end of that cycle.
Right. Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, I've heard about the shortage and the workforce for years now. And it seems to be getting worse before it's going to get better. But in all honesty, I don't know whether to say it's bad or good for the installer, for the business owner, because, their value keeps going up, and so, as the host of TileMoney, I'm glad for that. I'm glad that the less installers out there means that your value goes up. I'm glad to see people booked out, 6, 12, 18 months with work, because consumers just can't find enough installers, seemingly, apparently. Seems to be a worldwide issue, from what you're telling me, and I've heard from others. A lot of people are retiring in the next 5-6 years. I interviewed one man from Canada. He said 50% of the workforce, the labor workforce, is retiring in 6 years, or retirement age.
That's an incredible number. Wow.
It's a crazy number. And I think he was talking Toronto specific, but we can figure, it's not that far off from the nation or the world, so it is it's an interesting time. I think it's a great time to have skills with your hands. I really do. I think it's all the more reason to get into the trades, right? If
completely
there's
agree.
fewer people, doing it, and seems to be a bit of a renaissance for the trades, for blue collar workers right now. As we mentioned, social media is helping, podcasts are helping. This kind of, conversations are definitely helping to attract people and have an inside look. It's kind of interesting to be able to get an inside look at the trade from outside the trade. I'm sure people, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, and to your question before, Luke, you've got two different types of tilers here locally. You've got the guys that are booked out in advance. It could be 6-12 months, and there's plenty of them around. And they're usually your artisan type tiling contractors that you'll see every day on Instagram posting these incredible jobs. That's not to say there aren't others out there, but there are different groups that, some are very social media savvy and some aren't, but still producing great work. And then you have there are a lot of trades out there that are not getting as much work in the tiling trade. So, and that goes hand in hand with that lack of training that we have in the industry. Is that we've got a whole bunch of guys out there that probably need more training, so they can be more proficient at tile installation.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that's ever more important. Why people like you are in the NTCA over here in the United States and the TCNA. And they're keen on training, right? They're keen on the education aspect, because as we see people coming into this industry, and it's really great to have Tiling Connect podcast, TileMoney, NTCA, all these different resources, and to be able to point people to them, because it can be confusing when you come into the industry. It's confusing. It's like, well, where do I, who's the governing body to look to, or where do I get this information, or what does all this mean? And it takes years. I mean, it takes years to figure it out, you know, it can. So if we can shorten people's, you know, experience, I always figured if I knew how valuable attending the trade shows, like you're coming over to the States here and I want to talk about that. But if I knew when I was younger how valuable just attending one trade show could be and what that could mean for the rest of my career, right? I would have wanted to go right away. You know?
Well, we have so we have a guide over here, a handbook. It's the AS3958, and it's largely it's a guide for the installation of ceramic and porcelain tiles. And it's about to be, I hear through different channels that they've been doing there's a committee that's been doing a lot of work on upgrading it and updating it. Because the last update was over a decade ago. So that's about to be launched for public comment, I think, at the moment, then with potential a launch in some time in the first half of 2023. Over the years that I've been dealing with tile contractors, the amount of times that I've gone and spent time on a job site and speaking with them, and one of the first questions I ask them is, do you have a copy of the AS3958? Because it's like your handbook, right? It's like that guide you want to have there. Because if a builder's going to back you into a corner based on something that you've done on a job site, you want to be able to have that reference manual and go, hang on a sec, Mr. Builder. You know, page 17, clause, 2.2, this is exactly how it's meant to be done. But none of, like, I think probably once in my career, had I had a response, yes, I've got it in the ute or the van or the truck and I'll go and get it. But, it's those sorts of things that we need, getting that more readily available to the installers would be a massive leap forward.
I think so too. They say it's like over here, they say our handbook, TCNA handbook, the number one purchaser is attorneys. So it's comical, but it's a dangerous situation. I mean, that means attorneys are using those against Tyler. So if you don't have that book and you're not following it,
Yeah, you're in trouble.
Don't change your number, but figure it out.
You
got to figure it out. I mean, hopefully you're doing everything right, correct, and it's going to last. But we really, as individuals, and I'm just as guilty, Mark, like when I was, first, I really do feel like Instagram and social media elevated my desire to be better so much more, because now all of a sudden I was putting stuff out there. And it's like, well, man, I don't want to put something that's subpar out than, somebody I look up to. So you start to learn about stuff. I'm afraid, though, like some of the younger social media influencers and stuff, they're almost just like turning their back on the TCNA manual, and they're just, not really embracing it. And I'm not sure how to, get them on board to kind of have the same conversation as like we want to have, Mark, like we want to encourage people to, look to the books and know why you should at least own one, and know how to use it to sell yourself, sell your value. Right.
Absolutely.
And do better work. So I don't know. I'm still going to continue doing what you do, asking questions. Do you have this book? Do you know where you can get it? And just, that's all you can do really, is one person at a time, I guess. Is that what you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the podcast is a terrific platform for continuing to spread that message and repeat it. So you just put it on playback all of the time. Look, I was on a job site yesterday, and this goes hand in hand with, spending some time with a contractor on a job site. He ran into a bit of difficulty with cutting a 20 mil thick porcelain tile, and he needed a solution for the job site. So I went out there and he had one of the machines that we sell, and we put a different blade on it, and we did some cutting, and it all worked out. And then in the background, we've got a guy cutting some concrete who's just producing like clouds of dust. And I'm like, we're all running around going, what is this guy doing? Like, this is crazy. So we had to go up to him on like 2 or 3 different occasions and go, man, you can't do that anymore. Like, this is like, you just, dust is problematic. It's dangerous. It can cause, all types of different things. So I think getting out there on a job site and, to your point, spreading the message and telling people that, of A, the dangers of what they're doing, but B, also the financial burden that could be tabled with if the wrong person drives past and goes, hey, here's your fine for, breaking the rules.
I've been to some of those classes where they talk about dust contamination. I've been to mold remediation classes, gotten some certificates. It's a big deal. And, the fines are very big, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
The number one question or resistance from contractors is, especially with some of the asbestos. We had a lot of asbestos over here. When you're remedying that and taking it off the job site. I mean, some of the rules, especially I was in California, the rules in California are even more strict than, Florida probably. And they're there to protect, and I appreciate the rules, right? But then you stop somebody mid-job that's, making a complete dust mess, and he's probably thinking, I got $200 or $300 paid to do this, and I'm going to get it done.
Done, yeah.
And that was the number one, objection from contractors is this adds to the cost. Like not just a little, like you're talking sometimes 2, 3, 4 times, 5 times. It would add to the cost of a job to do everything prim and proper, which there's a reason to do it, right? And now the law dictates we must do it. But now it added to the cost, so it's this crazy thing. What would you tell somebody in that scenario?
Man, that's a tough question to answer. Hey, look, if you're choosing health versus finances, it's a really, really tough one to sort of path to choose to go down. And I get it, right? I think you need to learn from the lesson and go and talk to your builder about, the dangers of, and it may not happen on that job, but you need to talk to the builder about the dangers of, what they're doing and the effect that it can have on the future jobs that they're doing. I know that in this particular instance yesterday, the tile contractor ran over to the guy twice and just told him, man, you cannot do this. And particularly while there was other contractors around. Now, when everyone went to lunch break, I'm not sure what happened then, whether he went back on the diamond saw. But yeah, look, it's a tough one. I'm not sure how we tackle that. We definitely need some guidance and some intervention from the right government groups as well, in terms of them putting out programs and educating. Because this can't just be from the contractor up only responsibility. That's that's just not fair. There's a whole bunch of people out there in the world that can have influence, and I think the different government bodies need to get more involved. In Australia, we don't have as much involvement from, I think, the state or federal governments in terms of our sector. I'm sure the industry as a whole in construction, yes, they would have a fair amount of influence, but more specific in those areas, and you only ever hear from them when there's a problem, right? But they need to be more proactive in helping, provide some solutions and some training programs and those sorts of things.
Yeah. Well said, Mark. I appreciate it. I'll just echo your comments as well. It's up to us as business owners, as tilers, to choose what we're going to do, what we're not going to do. And at some point, even if we were doing something wrong, right? Like at some point, I've been that guy, on the saw blowing dust everywhere. I've cut in whole houses with a Makita grinder, and I've sucked most of that into my lungs, silica sand, whatever. But once you learn not to do it, and the dangers and the reality of the consequences, don't do it. And there's going to be somebody, elevate your business. There's so many consumers. There's going to be consumers who will gladly pay more for somebody who's health conscious, eco-friendly conscious, all these good things, and who does things by the law, does things by the most legitimate way we can do it. There's always going to be a consumer. So I appreciate your response, and I was trying to stump you there, and I didn't do it. So, good job.
Well, as a consumer, I'm glad you said that, Luke, because my first thought was, if somebody comes to me and says, I can do it for a quarter of the price, but they don't mention, hey, we're not going to take care of X, Y, and Z, dustless, et cetera. You just say, hey, cost is a factor. That's fine. It's not my health. But from an education standpoint, it's good to know. And I'm sure part of this comes down to educating the client. Hey, this is what we do. This is how we're going to handle it. This is why. Obviously at some point it's out of your control whether they decide or not. But like you said, there's plenty of other fish in the sea, so to speak, like people that'll willingly pay for it to be done the right way. And education, to the client is important. It sounds like from an outsider perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Luke. You go.
Thank you, Grant, for chiming in. As a consumer, that means a lot because we get an inside look on what a consumer would look for, and and the great thing is, Tylers, business owners, you do the education, you focus on the education, and you tell people why you want to remedy that dust, and extract that dust and educate them. It means something to Grant. Because Grant has a child at home. Grant has a wife at home. It means it's a very emotional for Grant to protect his family. So now all of a sudden your price is higher, but you've educated Grant. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, no, look, I was just going to say, and one of the things we don't want to get to is a world where we're ruling by fines, right? So, and what I mean by that is we don't want to have to, pull out the card of, hey, look, that if you're doing this, the way you're doing it could potentially cost you up to $5,000 if someone from the right government organisation drives past and sees what you're doing. We sort of want to be encouraging people based upon the health aspect and the awareness programs of not only for themselves, but for like people like Grant and other consumers that are there and that are exposed to that type of workmanship, whether it's dust or dangerous practices. It could be anything, right? But yeah, it's important to the education piece is just. It's limitless.
Yeah. Dirk Sullivan has a business in Portland, Hawthorne Tile, and he's very active with the National Tile Contractors Association, 5-star contractor, all that good stuff. And I interviewed him a few years back, and for the first time, and he said, "Luke, it's just shocking how expensive it is. It's shocking how expensive it is to work in somebody's home and do it the proper way and abide by all the rules and have treat your employees right and actually care. It's just shockingly expensive." And he said, "But that's the business we're in. We need to accept that." And things, you mentioned it, prices are going up on materials, on everything, right? Fuel, your rent goes up, everything goes up. So it's just going to be an ongoing challenge, which is why TileMoney continues to put out business-related content every single week, to remind people they're in business. I want to talk on the trade shows for a minute, Mark. You're coming to the States. You're coming to Vegas. Is this a return trip for you, or how often do you come over here?
Man, have I got a story to tell you?
Okay.
We last time I've been to the States a few times. I've traveled around quite a bit to San Fran and New York and different places. Nice. I was over in Vegas for World of Concrete in 2020, believe it or not. So the business that I started with, I joined the organization in sort of mid to late 2019. And one of our business plans was to go to World of Concrete, meet with some of our key supply partners and try and find some new tools that we could bring back. And then, of course, obviously, end of 2019, the dreaded C word came about, and all of a sudden, we were talking about it at a dinner one night with one of our suppliers about, surely this will never make it to America or Australia. And I got back on the 9th of February into Australia from LA, and literally, I think about 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later, our Prime Minister at the time decided we're just going to close the country. It's like, that's it, just closing down. We're going to be the first country in the world to declare it a pandemic. God knows why. It was a race to do that. We came back. So no, not my first time to the shows. I was at World of Concrete for 3 days. It was incredible, just mind blowing. The things that you see there and all of the different internal and external events. It was incredible. So you're coming back to surfaces next year.
Nice.
Yeah.
And you're in for one heck of a week, Mark. I'm sure you know already, but you have like 3 or 4 shows going on. So you've got Tice, and then you've got K-Biz, the kitchen bathroom design show, and then you've got a hardware show, and then you've got I think you've got one. I think they just declared it what do you call it? Like finish trade week or, something like that, like design in school. So like the whole week is focused. There's a few small things going on. So you're going to have a good time for sure.
Wow.
That's going to be fun.
Yeah, I'll be bouncing around between the buildings.
Are you going to work or for just to bounce around and visit?
No, look, a bit of a dual purpose. I wanted to do a lot of, wanted to do some stuff with the podcast while I'm there.
Mm-hmm.
Good opportunity to actually get some new information and some new content and take it back home because, obviously the audience here, while there's definitely some shared audience between what you and I do, there's also a lot of guys here that are now looking at me going, oh, what's next and what's coming up and hey, can you look at this? So yeah, a little bit of work and then definitely a little bit of pleasure. My partner's coming with me.
Nice.
And after the shows at the end of that week, we're heading up to Yosemite National Park, and they're going to take her up to Sacramento and then across to San Francisco for a few days and do the real touristy things like the the wineries and go across to Alcatraz and might leave her there. No, I wouldn't.
Hey, she might leave you now.
But yeah, it should be a lot of fun. And looking forward to connecting with you. I imagine that you're going to be there and connecting in with as many people as I can. So I'm pretty sure that I'm going to be emotionally exhausted every day from all the conversations that I have. But it sounds like it's going to be a blast.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm looking. Yeah, to be honest, I'm not sure I can make it this year or not. I'm kind of focused on coverings, which is closer to home here in Florida, Orlando. But you never know. I mean, it's the more I think about it, the more appealing it is with all those trade shows.
Yeah.
I've never been to KBIZ. I've never been to a couple of those trade shows. I've been to TICE a few times. So it's
nice.
You never know what's going to happen with me.
Yeah.
Grant can attest.
Yeah, that's for sure. Definitely.
Nice.
Well, listen, this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to continuing to listen and tune into your podcast and see where you take that.
Thanks,
overall, what's your futuristic outlook for the tile industry?
Look, it's pretty awesome, actually. I think there's a lot of work in the industry here. We're on a little bit of a go slow sort of program for the last sort of 12, 18 months because of the lack of building materials and supplies and then prices going up. So everyone's sort of adjusting to the new way of building with all the new prices. And, look, we've still got people waiting 14, 15 months for a new build on a home, which is just insane. But that's starting to reduce, which is good. And I think all of the people that I talk to, I've got a good 6, 12 months worth of work in front of them. I think as long as we can keep the dreaded recession out of our conversations, I think we can continue to focus on all the positive stuff. There's still plenty of work out there, and I think the new handbook, when it gets delivered next year, will breathe a lot of life back into the industry here in Australia as well. I think there'll be a big mission for the right groups to continue to drive that messaging on the new handbook or whatever they call it, and making sure that as many people know about it and obtain copies and keep delivering that. But, look, it's looking pretty positive. A lot of the guys and girls that I talk to are pretty excited about 2023 and, continuing to deliver some really high quality tiling jobs. So yeah, it's looking great.
Awesome. I'm glad you're positive. I'm positive too about the industry and the future as a whole. It's weird talking about things like recessions. And I mean, some folks will tell you we're in a recession right now. It doesn't feel like it,
Nah.
It's a strange thing. And I know I was talking to another Tyler, and he said, it's not a recession. He's like, I don't know what to call it, but it's not a recession. And he's like, it's something entirely different. And I'm like, you know what? You're probably right. They'll probably come up with a new name for it, whatever happens.
Yeah.
Well, we've got one of the lowest unemployment rates in the country ever in Australia.
Wow.
So it's like, when you talk about having the lowest unemployment rates but the highest inflation rates, I don't know what you call it. It's like the Twilight Zone. But we'll just keep running with it. It's working. I think if everyone remains positive and we keep moving forward in the right direction, and I think that's the best place we can continue to encourage.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I really appreciate about you, Mark, is you're so positive. And, I try to not get negative, try to leave off CNN and all those negative news channels and Fox and all. I mean, I'll throw them all under the bus. I don't mind. They're all trash. But we really appreciate you coming on. Was there anything we missed you wanted to highlight? Or
no, man. Look, you guys have been great. It's awesome to connect with people all around the world, and I was sort of excited and looking forward to catching up with you guys today, and just sharing some stories and talking about some synergies and things. And yeah, hopefully we get a chance to meet next year. If not, there's there's always what we're doing now. And it's been great. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, and thanks for being an inspiration, Luke. It's been awesome listening to your work in my car while I'm driving around, seeing clients and customers, and I'm getting a lot of really awesome ideas.
Right on. My pleasure, Mark. Appreciate you. Have a good day.
Yeah, you too. See you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, Tile friends, I hope you enjoyed that interview with Mark. I really enjoyed getting to know him and kind of seeing things from a little slightly different perspective, being that he's over there across the pond, as they say. And if you want to meet him, he said he's going to be in Vegas in the first week of February there for TICE and all that good stuff. So definitely reach out to Mark. Tell him you heard him on the TileMoney podcast and you want to meet him in Vegas. I think it would be well worth your time. Tile friends, if you enjoy this podcast, feel free to leave us an honest review on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, or our Facebook page would be another good spot. I appreciate you, Tile friends. Remember, stay positive, and you're in business, so please, please, please stay profitable out there, Tile friends.